Have you ever sat down to finally deal with your finances and then just didn't? You opened the app, you looked at the number, and something inside you just said no. Not now. Maybe later. That's not laziness. That's not weakness. That is your brain doing exactly what it was built to do. See, your brain doesn't experience money as a neutral resource. It experiences it as a signal about safety, about belonging, about survival. And when that signal feels threatening, your brain doesn't ask you for permission. It just acts. It avoids. It delays. It spends before it can lose. It saves so tightly it forgets to live. And here's what nobody tells you. Every single one of those patterns has a name, a mechanism, a reason that makes complete sense once you understand what your brain is actually trying to protect you from. So before you call yourself bad with money one more time, stay with me. Because what you're about to learn might change how you see yourself forever. Here's something your brain does that feels like failure, but isn't. When you see a bill you can't pay, when your account balance drops lower than you expected, when someone asks about your savings and you change the subject, your brain reads all of that as a threat, not a financial problem, a threat, like danger. And so it activates the exact same system that kept your ancestors alive. The amygdala, the brain's alarm center, fires up. Cortisol floods your body, and your entire nervous system shifts into one single priority: escape. That's why you close the app. That's why you spend on something small just to feel in control. That's why avoidance feels like relief. Because biologically, it is relief. Your brain just learned the wrong lesson, that avoiding money problems makes them go away. It doesn't. But now you understand why the loop exists. And understanding it is the first step out of it. Scientists at Princeton and Harvard ran a study that changed how we understand poverty, and really, how we understand all of us. They found that when people feel financially scarce, when money feels tight, even just in their minds, their cognitive bandwidth drops significantly. Their ability to think long-term, to plan, to make considered decisions, it shrinks. Not because they're less intelligent, because their brain is using so much energy managing the threat of not having enough, that there's simply less left for everything else. They called it the bandwidth tax. And it doesn't just affect people who are broke. It affects anyone who feels like they don't have enough, even people with savings accounts, even people who are objectively financially stable. Because scarcity is not just a number in your account. It's a feeling, a pattern your nervous system learned, often in childhood, that says there is never enough. And once that pattern is set, your brain runs it automatically, whether it's true or not. That's not a flaw. That's a survival program. Now here's one that almost everyone feels, but almost no one talks about. You're scrolling, and you see someone your age buying their second property. Someone else announcing they paid off their student loans. Someone posting their investment portfolio, numbers you don't recognize, confidence you don't feel. And something happens in your chest. It's not quite envy. It's not quite shame. It's this very specific pain of feeling like you're running a race where everyone else got a head start, and nobody told you the rules. Psychologists call this social comparison, and your brain is hardwired to do it. We evolved in small groups where your relative status mattered for survival. Knowing where you stood, compared to others, was information your brain needed to keep you safe. But now you're comparing yourself to a curated highlight reel, a filtered version of someone's best financial moment. And your brain doesn't know the difference. It just registers. They have more. I have less. Danger. You're not failing. You're comparing real life to someone else's performance. And this is the part one most need you to hear. Every pattern you've had around money, the avoidance, the anxiety, the spending to soothe, the feeling of never having enough, the inability to look at your bank account without your chest tightening, none of it is a character flaw. None of it means you're bad with money. It means your brain built a system to protect you, based on what it learned, based on what it saw, based on what it felt when money was uncertain or scary or something that caused conflict in the people around you. You didn't choose these patterns. They were installed. And the most important thing neuroscience tells us about installed patterns is this: what was learned can be unlearned. What was wired under stress can be rewired with understanding. You are not broken. You never were. You were adapting. The same way every human brain adapts, by building the best possible response to the environment it was given. That's not failure. That's intelligence. So what do you actually do with this? First, you stop fighting your brain. Because you cannot shame yourself into better financial behavior. Shame activates the exact same threat response that got you into the avoidance loop in the first place. Shame is gasoline on a fire your brain is already trying to put out. What works is something almost embarrassingly simple: naming what's happening. When you feel the pull to avoid your finances, say it out loud or in your head. My nervous system is in threat mode. My brain thinks this is danger. And then, very slowly, you introduce safety. You open the app for 60 seconds. You don't have to do anything with the number. Just look. Let your brain learn that looking doesn't kill you. That the number, whatever it is information, not a verdict on your worth. You automate the smallest saving you can without feeling it. $5. 10. Not because the amount matters yet, but because your brain needs evidence that the future is something you can influence. You build the feeling of agency before you build the portfolio, because the psychology has to come first. Here is what I want you to take from this. Your brain is not your enemy. It never was. Every behavior you've ever been ashamed of around money, the avoidance, the impulsive spending, the anxiety that doesn't seem proportional to your actual situation, the feeling of running and never catching up, all of it was your brain trying, with everything it had, to protect you. The problem was never your character. The problem was that nobody gave your brain accurate information. Nobody taught it that looking at the number is safe, that saving is possible, that the future is something you can shape. But now you know. And knowing changes what's possible. You don't have to be perfect with money. You just have to understand yourself a little better than you did 7 minutes ago. Tell me in the comments, which of these patterns did you recognize in yourself? The avoidance? The comparison? The scarcity feeling that stays even when the account is fine? Because you're not alone. And if this made something click, subscribe. Because every week, we go one layer deeper. And every layer makes you a little more free.